Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our Dynamics GP coffee break using workflow in GP. My name is Melissa, and I'm the facilitator today. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the questions area in the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll answer questions at the end. So this session will be recorded and posted on our blog this week, as well as shared with you early next week. So now I'd like to introduce our presenter today, Don McNulty, who is a solutions architect at Encore. Don, I'll pass it over to you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Melissa. So today we're going to talk a bit about a workflow that's built into GP. GP in the last six or seven releases, ever since 2013, has been improving its workflow capabilities in a lot of different areas. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through a lot of that. Let me just go like this. We're going to go through a lot of the ways that we can do and what can we do inside workflow inside GP and what that means to the organizations. So we've got different workflow types. We have them for accounts payable, we have them for purchase orders, we have them for purchase order receipts, purchase order invoices, we have them for expense reports in project accounting, we have them for timesheets in there, as well as stuff in sales order processing and AR and AP and GL. And I'll show you a few of those and show you the list of the ones that we are. We're going to be concentrating mostly on accounts payable today, just simply because I have to do one in order to do it in the 25 minutes. It works with email. So assuming that you are on 18.4 or better, you can use the Exchange email from Office 365 to send emails with approvals. Within that email, you can open up the Exchange server such that it will accept an approval coming down from an email. So I can send an email to my manager. The manager gets to see it. Attached to that email can be a document. So I can attach a document and say, here's a copy of the invoice that you're going to approve. You can look at the invoice and he has an approve and reject on the email, which he can then select, and it will then select it inside GP. That workflow user who is using the email for approval does not require a GP user license in order to approve it, which is very good because that keeps your costs down for people who don't usually go into GP. I'm not going to be showing the email today simply because I don't have an Exchange server and things like that, but I have the workflow running within GP. So then underneath the workflow setup, you have single level, multi-level. You can have as many different levels as you wish. You can change things such as if it's over $5,000, send it to Joe. If it's under $5,000, send it to Jane or whoever it happens to be. Once you've done that, you can then specify who can approve and whether or not it has to go through a secondary approval. And you can go through 2 or 3 approvals if required. And you can say, okay, if Joe approves it at the managerial level, but it's over $20,000, it needs to go to Sharon because Sharon's the CEO. She has to approve everything over 25K or whatever your particular firm requires. I won't get into it that detailed, but you can have that. So you can have things set based on things that are on the purchase or on the sale, on the accounts payable transaction. We'll also talk a little bit about use and approval. How do we submit it? Once it's been submitted, it has a list of what's being done and where it is and who has what. How do we approve it in GP, which is what I'll be showing today. And then, of course, we have the email approval I just discussed a second ago. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to show you a quick demo on this so you can see what it is that we've got for a setup. So there is my Great Plains. I have 2 copies of GP running. On the right-hand side here, I am logged in as a user called Test, who is an approver. And then I'm logged in on the other side as SA. I'm logged in as now the approvers are not so much the usernames in GP when you use email as they are the Windows server user, i.e. your // course, or you're on like don.mcnulty@encorebusiness.com, that's who I would be logged in as. I'm actually logged in here as that exact same thing, I'm logged in as Contuso/Don, because this is Contuso. My domain is Contuso. So that's who I am logged in as. That is what drives the approvals. The approvals are done through Active Directory. That's how it gets its authentication. It does not use the SQL authentication that the rest of SQL uses, that the rest of GP uses. So underneath administration, underneath our setup, we're just going to go down here and I'm going to show you a little bit about the setup. So what we've got is we have workflow. And underneath workflow, we have 4 separate areas: email, message setup, edit the workflow, approval, and things like that. Underneath my workflow maintenance, what we have under workflow maintenance is a list of all of the different documents that we can place workflow on. So underneath purchasing at the top, it starts with purchasing. We have accounts payable, batch, transactions, PO, requisition, invoice, etc., receiving transaction, and vendor approval. So we can do any of these or all of these. Each one of them is separate. Each one of them is segregated. In other words, if I approve a requisition, and then I also have approval at the PO level, I have to approve the requisition. Somebody would turn the requisition to a purchase order. I then have to approve the purchase order. And then if I had it set up, I could say my receipt needs to have approval. So I would enter the receipt. I need to get approval for the receipt. And then I have to have an approval for the invoice match. Very rarely do we do all 4. We usually do one or two of them, usually at either the PO level or we do it at the requisition level, depending on the organization. And it's something that needs discussion and analysis at the front end. I'm going to be dealing with payables in here. Other ones that we've got, we have under financial, we have general ledger account approval so that you can get people to approve new GL codes and batch approvals. Under sales, we have sales transaction approval for credit limits and things like that, so we can do that, and a receivable batch. Underneath payroll, this is US payroll only. This does not affect Canadian payroll at all. These are available for the US payroll. And then underneath project, we have an expense report and a timesheet. So if you're using project accounting, this does a very, very good job for timesheet approval and expense report approval as it goes to the projects. But we're going to concentrate today on purchasing, and we've got one set up here called AP transactions. So when I set up an AP transaction, I've got a couple set up here. I've got it set up as Don, and I've got it set up as Test, so we can see it over here. So what we have here is we can set how do we approve this and who approves this. And what we've done is I've said over 10K, it goes to me only. But if it's under 10K, it's going to go to Test or Don. So either one of us can approve, and we can have multiple approvals. When we go into something like this one, and we go into the workflow inside here, you'll see here it says approve over 10K. That's fine. Only one response is needed. If you've got something like a payable that you say 2 people have to approve it, then you can say all must approve, or majority must approve, or a number has to approve. So it's up to you as to how you want to set this up. I have it set up fairly simply that if it's over 10K, it comes here. Otherwise, it goes less than 10K, it goes elsewhere. Once we've set this up, that's fine. What we do is at this point here, it changes our accounts payable screen. So what happens is, as you can see, I've got a 10K limit inside here. So and we activate it by pushing this button. Down here, it tells me who I escalate it to. And when I'm inside each of these, you'll see that it has the assignments down here. These Test and Don are users in the domain, Contuso/Test and Contuso/Don. We close this. So that's how we set this up to begin with. And those can be as complex as you need. Now, one thing I should mention inside there, and I apologize for closing that at that point, is that when I go into here, and I've just got it based on the dollar value. But if I was to create a new step, I'm not going to save this one. So when I bring this up, it gives me a list of all the fields that are on an accounts payable transaction. So when I look at an accounts payable transaction, let me go into an accounts payable transaction here, just a regular transaction entry. So inside here, AP transactions, I get this new line. It says AP transactions not submitted, and I get a new button called submit. And I also get a new button called view history because this has got workflow attached to it. So what I'm going to do here is I can come down through here and I'm going to put this into test. And I'm going to pick my favorite customer, my favorite vendor, which is Ace Travel. And enter. Now, one of the things that this does, if you do decide to do accounts payable transactions, is it reverses what most people do with their approvals. Most people send their documents around for approval, then enter them when they're approved. They don't enter them into GP before they're approved. It requires that they be entered into AP. So as we come down here, I'm going to put in $10,001. I'm not going to worry about taxes or anything. I'm going to go to distributions. I'm going to look inside here. It's okay. It's been coded to travel expense. I'm good with that. So there we are here. Now, each of these fields that you see inside here is available on workflow. You could say, well, if the shipping method is overnight, send it to Dawn. If it's not overnight, you can send it to somebody else. I can do it based on the tax schedule, the document number, the vendor ID, and things like that. So at this point here, you'll notice what's missing here is that the post button is shaded. You cannot post because this transaction is not approved. So what I can do here is I can either save it, which is fine, or I can submit it. I can attach a document. I'm going to save this transaction. I'm going to attach a document, and I'm going to go attach. So this would be the attachment that would go out with the piece. There it is there. And this is just, as we showed last seminar, we talked about a document attach, and here's a document for my shiny auto. I had my car cleaned. Perfect. So we go okay. So at this point here, I can now hit submit. And when I hit submit, it asks me for a comment. Like so. And I hit submit. So once I've submitted this, it submits it into the workflow. So inside here, so now when I go into here, if I bring up 463, which was the vendor voucher number that I was just on, let me do a quick look at it. There it is, approval over 10K, pending approval for Dawn. So underneath my workflow, I can approve and reject it here because I am logged in as Dawn. So I could do that. If I click on here, I can view the history, and it shows me a list of all of the possibilities. So inside here, it's saying, okay, workflow was originated, and it's now pending my approval. So when I go into my purchase requisitions, go into payables transactions, and let me just come on. We get a list of transactions here, and I'll do the same thing over here, pending approval. So what this is doing is this brings it up. Now my machine is a little slow today because of where it is. This is a demo environment that I run. So there it is there. So there's my different documents inside here of the documents that I have. And there they are there as well. So you can see here that I can see these reports that need to be approved. There's the workflow user is test, and there's the workflow user is Dawn. So there it is there. And 463, this one at the bottom, is the one that I just entered. So if I click on, I can approve this, and I can approve multiples in here because I'm Dawn over here. And I would then be able to hit the approve here. If I do that, it'll automatically change it over here for the vendor. So as I approve this, or I can say this to take this one here, and I can go like this, and I can go approve and complete, or I can reject it, delegate it, or I can view the workflow history. So I can see what's going on for it. So if I wanted to reject it, I could reject it going back. They would have to recode it and send it back to me on that one there. I'm going to approve it, and I'm going to go approve. This will then mark this as an approved transaction. The approval's been completed. And now if I go back to my purchasing and I go back to my transaction entry, $63, pending approval by 2 approvers. So it's still pending the approval. I must have clicked that box, but there it is there. It's now ready to go. And then at this point, I can then save it. I could then post it in a batch. So the idea behind it is that it pushes all this stuff into a batch. The batch is then sits there. You can then approve, then you can post the batch. When you post the batch, the only items that are posted are those that are approved. It will not post the unapproved transactions. Okay? So as a result, you can post it and then repost it again. If you recover it, you can repost it so that you can then control that particular piece from there. Okay? So that's basically how it operates from that point of view. The attachments are always there. The attachments come out from email. So you can do this at different points of the system. So it's a matter of where you wish the approval to be. So when we talk about transaction entry, this is an all or nothing transaction. So what happens on this is that everything is done, all transactions are approved, or none of the transactions are approved. You can't specify certain transactions to flow through. So your rent, your heat, your light, your telephone would end up going into a batch. They'd be sent to someone for approval. They'd have to go into here and click this button here, which just selects them all. As you can see here, if I click on them all, it highlights them all, and then I can approve accordingly. So that would then allow me to do that. I haven't refreshed it, which means this one's still on there, but if I was to refresh this, it would automatically it would do that. So that would allow you to do this. You can filter this by user, so you can see by user who has to approve it. So you can filter it by user action or by only by people who are tests. So right now where workflows, I can add filters and things like that to my navigation pane. If I click on any of these, it shows me there's my travel and what it is. And if I just double click this, it shows me the 10,001 is right there. There's the 10,001 I just entered on 11/22. Task due date, these ones are now late. They would be late, so therefore they would be escalated. Okay. All right. So that is the setup and the use of the payables transactions piece. It works very much the same on all of the other pieces. So as the sales order goes through, if it triggers a certain thing, you have to submit it for approval. When the approval has been submitted, it has to be waited until it is approved. They are all or nothing. So that's just the way that GP has written it. And then the workflow itself flows from there. Any attachments go with all the documents as they move from document to document, as we discussed last seminar. And that is basically all I needed to cover. Melissa, did I have any questions?
No, there haven't been any questions coming in. If anyone does have questions, just enter them into the question panel now.
Okay. So the one thing I do want to mention on this is that it's important that you plan your workflow at the outset before you get started on using it. Because of the way that the branching that's available and the if statements, if it's more than this, if this vendor is so and so, go to here or whatever it happens to be, you have to be very sure about what your workflows are. So you need to make sure that you spend the time at the front end to map out those workflows properly so that you get the result that you want. It's quite a powerful tool from that regard, and it allows you to easily add workflow to your system that you may not have known about. The reason for today was just to kind of introduce you to it, to say, okay, this is what's available. You can send messages. The email messages that you can send on these things are, you set them with the subject line, and you can set the body so that it has information about the transaction. So you can say, please approve the following document to this vendor for this amount, and then attach the document according to the email. That email then goes out, and then the person can then do the approval directly from the email. All right, so if there's no questions, let me just
Yeah, no questions have come in, so looks like
perfect.
we can finish up a little early.
Yes. So we are at a couple of minutes early. So, upcoming, we've got some more scheduled for the next few months. The one that is in December, the maintenance of SOP tables, is something that if you're running sales order processing, you probably have orphan records. This is a way of handling the orphan record. It'll be a very quick seminar, just like this one, 25 minutes at the outside. And then it will allow you to show you how you can find those transactions, determine what to do with them, and release the allocations accordingly. Okay. Then in February, we're going to do a what's new in Dynamics GP. 4, 5, and 6. That's 18.4, 18.5, 18.6. 18.6 was released in October, and each year we get a new dot. So 18.7 will be next October. Then in March, we're going to do charts, vendors, customers, and items in GP. That's changing them, modifying them, and combining them together. And then some time-saving tips on hotkeys and how to use GP more effectively. And then lastly, in May, we've got one for ACH and EFT. ACH for the United States and EFT for Canada, to how to set it up and what you need to plan while you're thinking about that. Again, that's an email piece as well. Okay.
We did have a question come in.
Okay.
They're asking, what is the workaround in the case the approver isn't available, like out of town?
So when you set your approver, so you can edit the workflow approver, and you can move them currently assigned to, and then you can delegate those transactions that are outstanding for him to there. You can delegate him as part of the workflow as well. So that's how you can edit the workflow on the pieces. So show me by date. Here's all the ones that are going to be there. That would then allow you to. So they're currently assigned to Dawn. I can assign them to, let me just go redisplay. So if I was to grab this one here, right? Enter a valid user ID, I can then delegate it over here to the appropriate person. Okay. So the idea behind it is that the Contuso, I can change it from Contuso Test to Contuso Dawn. I can delegate it to them. I can also, inside my workflow maintenance, inside here, I can escalate it. So as I look at this, when I double click on any of these, it says down here, assignment, and then I can also escalate at the front end. I can escalate down here, escalate to who? Who gets the escalation if it hasn't been done on time? Do I escalate to the next approver? Do I escalate to the test? Do I automatically reject the overdue task? Or take no action and just leave it and let it sit there? That depends on the individual. So test in this case might be somebody comes back to in AP who then has control over that and says, yes, I can approve that because Joe's away for the weekend. And this allows that to do. You can approve it. Can the person themselves can also delegate the task? So if I'm in my purchasing here and I click on my pending approval, when it comes up, I'll be able to delegate the task. So it'll come up a little quicker this time. This has got multiple users. Inside here, I can go like this. I can select this one here, and I can delegate. And who do I want to delegate to? I want to delegate to good. Now it's been delegated. And now this one here this delegation has been completed. So this Contuso Dawn is now going to go to test. And when I do the delegation, it will send the email to the delegate, and then the delegate can approve it. Okay, so they can do it themselves, or somebody can come in here and who's got system access. Somebody always has full access, so we always set it up that way so that they can delegate the other pieces to make sure that we've got the right people doing. We don't want the CEO to have to delegate if he's away, right? We want somebody else is going to have to do it. So we know that. Okay. Any other questions there, Melissa?
One just popped in. So if you are the approver, can you assign someone to approve all your tasks before you go away that can be activated each time you're out of office rather than updating each item individually?
Not easily. That is something that I think they're working on. It's not something, we have the delegation. We can delegate on the items that are there, but we can't delegate for the future ones. We can go in and change the workflow, but we cannot delegate on those ones. They would then come through. So yes, that is a challenge within the GP workflow.
Okay, great. Thanks. So that's it for questions. If someone doesn't approve, does it send you a reminder?
Does it send a reminder? I think they added that in 18.5, I think it was. Hang on, let me just check. I'm pretty sure there's a reminder. Take no action, and the task is overdue. Yeah, no, there's no reminder. They haven't added that yet. That was something that they've discussed it. That was something that somebody asked for. It does not send a reminder.
Okay, now we're actually done the questions, but feel free to reach out to Encore or to Dawn if you have any questions. I just want to say I did put in the chat the link to our events if you want to sign up for any more events. And I'm also adding a link to where you can set up your email preferences to opt into our monthly and quarterly emails so you can stay in the know about upcoming events and see our latest blog articles. So thank you, Dawn, for all the information today, and thanks everyone for joining us today. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.